This video is all about acid and base chemistry as relevant to food science, food processing, and toxins that might be present in your food. Food safety. First important definition is high acid and low acid food. Recall that the pH scale is a way to measure acidity. 7 is neutral, 14 is basic, 1 is acidic. In food science, we focus on pH of 4.6. This is our parameter of what is defining a low acid versus high acid food. So in food science, a high acid food is any food with a pH less than 4.6. A low acid food is any food with a pH greater than 4.6. And this 4.6 number, where does it even come from? It literally comes from the FDA, food safety regulatory bodies, saying, okay, when a food has a pH less than 4.6, it's highly acidic. This is making it very, very difficult for spoilage causing microorganisms, mold, bad bacteria, pathogenic bacteria. The acidic environment makes it very hard for these bad things to grow in the food, and therefore this high acid food preserves better and is less likely to be contaminated with bad pathogenic bacteria, and it is less likely to spoil due to spoilage causing microorganisms or mold. When a food is high acid, it is subject to less food processing and less severe pasteurization than a low acid food. And that is literally because it is acidic, and that's making it hard for bad bacteria to live. So you don't need to treat it with as much heat or as much intense processing to kill those bacteria, because the acidic environment itself already making it hard for that bacteria to exist. Low acid foods in food processing need more intense pasteurization and longer heat processing methods to make them actually legally or whatever safe for consumption. So low acid foods, because they just are not that acidic, it's pretty easy for mold or bad bacteria to grow and populate and contaminate that food. So literally, just to keep that food safe for consumption and to prevent spoilage or bacterial contamination, it must be further processed and further pasteurized to be deemed as safe. And this is all relevant to processed foods and food processing. And when we're talking about food safety, it's pretty important to know what we are even keeping our food safe from. We are keeping our food safe from bacterial contamination like E. coli or Clostridium Botulinum. E. coli is capable of living and growing in acidic foods. So things like apple juice is still at risk for contamination with E. coli, and apple juice will need to be pasteurized. The other bad bacteria that we are keeping our food safe from is Clostridium Botulinum. Clostridium Botulinum makes botulinum toxin, which is probably one of the most lethal, deadly toxins that biologically exists. What botulinum toxin does is at your synaptic cleft, so the place where two nerves are talking to each other, botulinum toxin will block one nerve from sending an excitatory signal to the other nerve. When this toxin is acting in your nervous system, it causes complete paralysis of all your muscles. What that means is you can't breathe, you can't move, your heart cannot contract, and you literally die. So Clostridium Botulinum is a deadly bacteria, and it produces the toxin, the lethal toxin, botulinum toxin. Clostridium Botulinum cannot survive in acidic environments. So as soon as that pH is below 4.6, Clostridium Botulinum cannot survive. That is why the FDA sets the parameter of high acid, low acid food being on the border of 4.6. When a food has a pH lower than 4.6, it is not at risk of being contaminated with Clostridium botulinum, and it is not at risk of having botulinum toxin. When a food has a pH greater than 4.6, it is at risk of Clostridium botulinum contamination and botulinum toxin. E. coli can survive in acidic environments and in non-acidic environments. Things like apple juice, orange juice, or other foods at risk of E. coli contamination will still need to be pasteurized and processed to ensure that we kill off any of those bad microorganisms. Other relevancy to pH in food science and food processing is preservation and shelf life. Again, that preservation thing is all about making sure no molds or spoilage causing microorganisms can exist on the food, but we can also add acids or bases to foods to increase the chemical stability of that food. So if a food is going bad after time, or it just tastes funny or it tastes off, one of that reasons could be is because the chemical molecules actually making that food are reacting or degrading or just doing funny things. If we add an acidity regulator or if we add some acid or base, we can increase the chemical stability of that food and preserve that food's quality and flavor over time. So again, this is super relevant to processed foods because we want that processed food to stay super hyper palatable and nice in texture and good in flavor over time as it sits on your shelf. We want to prevent the decay in quality, the decay in flavor. Acids, adding acids to foods can also add like a tangy or sour taste. Like those sour candies, those will often have citric acid added, and that gives it that like tangy little sour, strong, potent taste.
Anything else in food science I want to cover?
No. Okay, well, another cool thing is acids in foods. Those are things like lactic acid, citric acid, malic acid. Sometimes you will see malic acid added to orange juice, or no, apple juice. Malic acid might be added to apple juice and it enhances the apple juicy flavor. Citric acid comes from lemons, I believe, and that gives it like a citrus. Yeah, it's citric acid because it's an acid that comes from citric fruits. That is an acidity regulator and it can help keep foods acidic and it can aid in food preservation. Lactic acid is a byproduct of lactic acid bacteria fermenting the milk sugar lactate into lactic acid and something else. And lactic acid is also present in olives, and lactic acid works to preserve food because it's an acid. It creates an acidic environment that makes it really hard for bad spoilage causing bacteria to survive. This concludes my video on acid-base chemistry as relevant to food science. I hope you learned something cool. This is why I'm really excited about sharing it all with you. And do not forget. I wasn't sure if I wanted to say forget or neglect. Do not forget that the complete set of notes for the whole series, Organic Chemistry for Biohackers, is available on my website, nutritionbyelsa.com. So everything we're covering in the acid and base chemistry videos, all my other chemistry videos, all the information, the complete notes are gonna be found in that document available at nutritionbyelsa.com. And I hope you learned something so freaking cool because this stuff is really freaking cool. And I hope you all have a lovely day. So thank you for joining me. Bye everybody. See you later.